The second thing we can do is turn. And turning is conceding part of the argument, but show how the impact supports you. So you concede part, but show how the impact supports you. And the objective here is that you say, what you're saying here is that, sure, maybe public health does work for a few people, but because my value is the United States economy being strong, the fact that public health costs so much more money, if it does, might say that, sure, it's valuable, but I can turn this and I say, yes, you're right, it does help a few people, but because it only helps a few people at this massive cost, the criminal justice system is actually preferable. And so what you're doing when you're turning is you're basically kind of giving a little bit of rope so that your opponent has a chance to then hang themselves. Instead of you hanging them, you're basically saying, you're right, 1 plus 1 does equal 2, but we're not talking about basic math, we're talking about calculus. And so, yes, you're right that that is 2, but you're not looking at the math the right way, and so we win. And so that's what a turn does. So there's 2 different types of turns we're going to think about. The first is a link turn. This is a different cause. So a link turn is a different cause, and then there are impact turns, which is a different outcome. So let's talk about both of these types of turns. So a link turn says, sure, your story is accurate, but the cause is actually different than what you're pointing to. So assume that an affirmative gets up and they talk about how public health is the better system for dealing with individuals who don't use heavy drugs, who just use, maybe kind of the lower level drugs, so maybe like the marijuana users. We're just going to talk, they say public health is the better way to do it, and there's this study of people who are using marijuana every day, so that's called abuse, and those people are out in the world, and for every single one of them that went into a public health, that checked themselves voluntarily into a public health system, they were able to overcome their addiction. But the people who got caught in prison didn't overcome their addiction. So their story is, see, public health is the solution. If we give these people, put these people in rehab, then they become unaddicted. What you say is, we'll grant you that the people who self-checked in to the treatment in public health did, in fact, overcome their addiction. You say, but, now here's my link turn, the cause is very different than what you're saying. You, affirmative, are claiming that them being in public health is what got rid of the addiction. The reality is, these people wanted to be able to overcome their addiction, so they went and volunteered and checked themselves in. Because they volunteered, the cause is these people didn't want to be abusing illegal drugs. So even those same people, had they gotten arrested, in the criminal justice system would have tried to get help as well, and they would have been fine. So the cause isn't the rehab and the public health system, the cause is the individuals wanted to become healthy. And so you're basically pointing out how this link that the affirmative is trying to create isn't actually there. You're saying the cause is different than what they're claiming, and so that link turn means, okay, judge, accept what they're saying, but it doesn't actually support them. And what that does is it kind of casts a shadow on all the arguments they're making, because the judge is going to be like, oh, they're taking steps that they're not really supposed to be taking. So that's the first type. Impact turns mean you talk about the outcome. So if we take the same example, where it's these individuals who are volunteering to go into these rehab systems, and they say that those individuals are, leaving, and after 6 weeks they're not addicted. They leave the program, and they meet with them again, and 6 weeks later they put a marijuana cigarette in front of them, and the person's like, I have no interest in smoking it. And so they say, see, public health convinces people to not be addicted anymore. But maybe you say, you're right, but public health has this short run value where it helps people to not be addicted in the short run, but over the long term it actually makes it worse, and it creates this long-term craving. And so maybe you have this piece of evidence that says, yes, people after 6 weeks or 6 months aren't addicted, but 3 years later use in twice the amount. And so then you're turning the impact. You're saying, yes, it does help in the short run, but in the long run it makes it worse, and so that actually makes it so that we're having to use criminal justice all the more because the public health system only takes step one, and then it kind of leaves the people out hanging on their own. And so you're turning the impact, and you're saying the outcome is very different than the story the affirmative is trying to tell here. And so both of those are going to be valuable. And it's important to remember that turns are stronger than weighing. So if you have turns or weighing and you have to pick one or the other, then you want to use a turn. Why is this? Because when you're simply weighing, you're just saying, look, judge, what they're saying isn't as strong as what I'm saying. But you're both disagreeing about what you're saying. So one team says the sky is blue, one team says the sky is green. But disagreeing doesn't mean the judge has to necessarily take the second thing they heard and accept it. However, if one team says the sky is blue, and the other team says the sky is blue only sometimes, well, does the judge have to agree that the sky is clearly blue? Yes, the sky is, we've all agreed now the sky is blue. But now you're saying, but judge, they're ignoring all these exceptions, and we're going to point out these exceptions which make us more credible. And so that's why weighing is not as strong as to turn. Because basically when you turn, you're saying, look, they're only taking you part of the way. We're going to show how this doesn't actually help them, how it helps us. So, the last thing we're going to talk about is what an argument package is. An argument package is just putting a lot of these pieces together. And so rather than just getting up and saying, their argument is the sky is blue, we say that the sky is green, you're going to say, they say the sky is blue, we say first the sky is green. We say second, if it's blue, then exceptions. And this is how an argument package looks. So it's just putting multiple attacks together. When you've got lots of different attacks, you're trying to say, look, here's lots of different ways to refute this one or these two arguments. So what's the method of attack? How do we actually attack in a debate round? So we know we've got this argument package put together, and we say, okay, I have 4 different arguments about why this study from a group of high school students that public health is preferable to criminal justice is there. That's the argument the affirmative starts with. And so you're the negative, and you start out with your Yale study. So you've got that. And second, you say that it's only a short run. And then third, you say the wrong link. So this is your argument package. How do you actually present this in a debate round? So there's 3 things you're going to do. The first thing you're going to do is answer the question, what are we talking about? And this is just tagging. You want to have a tag. So this is going to say that criminal justice is better than public health. So this is the argument. So that's your tag. That's what are we talking about. The second thing you say is, what do I say? What's my argument? And this is just your response. So that's these 3 points here. These 3 points make up your response. So you say, criminal justice is better than public health. They said what? So our argument is this because they said that public health is better than criminal justice. You say, no, criminal justice is better than public health for 3 reasons. This Yale study. Second, it's only in the short run that their study works. And third, they're linking this incorrectly. They're telling the wrong story. And then the last and most important question, is the question we're going to always be asking, time and time again, and you're going to always hear us asking, is why does it matter? What does this matter? And that's the impact. And that's the I win. So the I win is the impact. Why do you win this round? It's because these things are stronger on your side than they are on the other side. So you're going to win with this argument. And so that's the method. It's called 3-point refutation. It's they said this, we say this, here's our support, and here's why it's better. So that's the method. So it's just a tag. Here's our argument. Here's our points. Here's our responses. Here's what I say. And then ultimately an impact of why I actually have to win. Because if you don't have this, then all you do is you just tell the judge there's competing arguments out there, but you aren't giving the judge a way they are supposed to vote. But if you give them the impact statement, then the judge is given a very clear reason why they should or shouldn't vote the way you're asking them to vote. And so that's the keys that we're going to talk about with refutation. So think about, you always want to reject the arguments unless they're superfluous. If they're just not important, you can accept them or ignore them. In fact, ignoring them is probably better. Just leave them go. You don't have enough time to go through and say, we accept that. Think about the two types of attacks. We're going to weigh them or turn them. And which kinds of attacks are stronger? The turns, not weighing. Because weighing is just going to say, we see two sides of the coin, but when you turn, you're actually saying, look, even if what they said is true, here's why I should win. And then we've got our 3-point refutation, how we actually reply to arguments. So are there any questions?